We on? I guess we are. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. It's a nice turnaround for nice turn up for people in this session. Happy to have you here. My name is Shai Ofek. I work in the Windows Server team at Microsoft. With me is Siama Polluri and also Klaus Jurgensen, who's a program manager in the Windows, who's the program manager for Storage Spaces Direct. In today's session, we're going to be covering deploying private cloud storage with Dell PowerEdge servers on top of Windows Server vNext. It was announced yesterday. It was Windows Server 2016. Some of the features that we're going to show to you today are going to be in Technical Preview 2, which you can download from the website today. With that, Siam.
Thanks, Shai. So I'm going to talk about what all the work we are doing with Microsoft in the storage spaces area. In the agenda, I'm going to talk about the brief history, where we are and where we are going. And I'm going to share with some of the learnings and also what are we doing with those learnings. And also Microsoft announced Storage Spaces Direct. And I'm going to show you what Dell is doing with the Storage Spaces Direct and what you can do by downloading the build from Microsoft. And also, I'm going to talk about managing and monitoring of changes in the Storage Spaces Direct that can be used. And the last, we're going to talk about Dell and Microsoft partnership. So Microsoft SDS, I think most of you might have heard to SID session. Staffed Defense Storage is a lot of investment Microsoft doing in that. And first, if you look at Windows 2012, most of the time when you're doing a cluster, everything you're using SAN storage. SAN storage is not going away. Microsoft is going to continue, and Dell is going to invest a lot in the SAN storage, and that is going to be the deployment that will be fully supported, and a lot of features going to be incorporated in the SAN storage as well. Having said that, Microsoft is actually introduced storage spaces in Windows Server 2012, and it has a shared JBOD, and along with that, there is scale-out file server, and there is RDMA support. When Windows 2012, Microsoft enhanced that with storage steering, write-back cache, and a lot of improvements in scale-out file server, SMB direct, improvements in the volume balancing, and also rebalancing between multiple instances and JBOD monitoring. So coming to now, and Windows Server to the Windows 2016, that we remote file server with shared nothing. Basically, you don't need a shared JBOD. You can actually do a clusters using storage clusters using non-shared storage, unlocking the your DAS, direct attached storage. Probably may reducing the cost of your whole storage solutions. Why? You can use SATA drives because they're in part of storage servers, and also you can use NVMe devices. Those NVMe devices that you cannot use in JBODs today. And also node fault tolerance, that's a new concept, and also health services. So and also storage spaces itself is going to have a lot more improvements on balancing between the pools and scalable pools. And also you're going to have a data rebalancing. So those are all the new features that comes along with the Windows 2016. That's all good. That's all the work Microsoft doing. But if you look at the storage spaces or any storage solution, it is not only the software. You need a reliable hardware. You need a lot of components that are actually works together along with the software to create you very reliable and scalable deployments. So this is what Dell started working with Microsoft in 2012, understanding the technology, what they're introducing it. And we evaluated and gave the feedback. And in Windows 2012 R2 release, we have active feedback, Microsoft, and trying to improve some changes. And after that, actually, just after Windows 2012 R2 released, we closely worked with Microsoft at the technical level, at the specifications level, how the JBOD monitoring is supposed to work. If you look at Windows 2012 R2, there is no JBOD monitoring. Actually, it's the QFE that came released after that. That is actually good work between Dell and Microsoft to actually introduce that feature. Shortly after that, Dell announced the storage spaces support for our 6 gig JBODs, MD1200 and MD1220. In the TechEd last year in Houston, we announced the support for Dell Dense JBOD, that is a 63.5-inch bay 6 gig JBOD. Then also we announced a solution for the VDI on MD 1200, 1220. With the release of Dell PowerEdge 13 generation servers, we enabled storage spaces on the server platform as well. Also, we introduced a 12 gig SAS fabric. 12 gig SAS fabric in the server, also 12 gig SAS fabric with our Dell JBods MD 1400 and 1420. Shortly after that, there is a huge project that went over here with Microsoft collaboration launching the cloud platform systems. This is a huge collaboration between Dell and Microsoft to bring this solution to the customers who are deploying the private cloud. And the journey continues. So we are working very closely in the Microsoft partnership to enhance the collaboration between the hardware and software to actually give a scalable and reliable solution. So this is how Microsoft Cloud Platform System powered by Dell looks. And if you can go to the Microsoft Cloud booth, you can see the actual hardware and the demo. So we have done, if you see, we have done a lot of activities about the storage spaces. And we have talked to a lot of customers, and we have worked closely with Microsoft about the CPS to bring up the whole CPS stack, and a lot of lessons learned during the process. Basically, when we talk to the customer, they want a real capacity planning. How can I do that? And also performance planning, how much performance I can expect. And also simple deployment guidance is not enough. They want more. The next one is the select correct hardware. Okay, what HDDs I need to use, what SSDs I use. One of the things we found is that not all the hard drives scale exactly the same way. Some of them scale better than others. Similarly, HBA firmwares, drivers, network cards. So we put together all the stuff and we identified some of the issues in the whole system at a scale. And we worked with the different partners, vendors to make sure they're all been fixed. And also configuration complexities. The first question when I go to the customer, they asked, okay, how many columns should I use? Why 2? Why not 4? Similarly, how many SSDs? Is SSD count should be same as HDD count? How the capacity is going to work out? There are a lot of unknown questions, and we want to improve that experience to the customer. And how do I the cable? Can I daisy chain JBods? What happens if I daisy chain? What happens if the one link goes down? So those are a lot of technical questions. They need to be, any storage IT administrator want to think about all these things before he or she goes to deploy it. Pool configuration, RDMA configurations. So those are all the things they wanted more information, more prescribed guidance how to deploy a reliable system. Validation with Windows features. So as the hardware scales, the Windows features, the clustering services, file server services, they need to scale between the nodes as well. So a lot of things we work with Microsoft in optimally configuration settings of the features and also any hot fixes. Any issues we found, we work with Microsoft to create hot fixes so that they be available. There's a lot of process went through that. Then also change management. Okay, deploying the storage spaces cluster is not good enough. You have to change manage because you may have to change hard drive firmwares, you may have to change updates. All the things come. How can I do my change management and update the cluster continuously without bringing down my workload? So you can see there's a lot more information needed just there than taking the hard drives, taking the server, or taking the JBods and putting together. It may not scale up, and you may see the issues. So what Dell has done. So today we are announcing Dell storage with Microsoft storage spaces. Basically what it is, this is a prescribed solution. It involves all the components that involves your cluster. Compute, your networking, client I/O devices, controllers, storage I/O, and actually the storage. Basically, we put all them together. Basically, all the experience we got over the years and also working with CPS, we put together all of these things, we tested. We tested hell out of this in our labs to make sure that we have a reliable solution. And you can get the more information on www.dell.com at Microsoft, or actually you can go to the Dell booth. We have a live demo and with all the hardware, and we have technical people to give you more guidance and chat with you. Why this is important? What all the things we are doing? As I said, we have validated the solution with the reliable scale-out file server operations. We have a predefined SKUs so that it's not like that, okay, how many hard drives I need to find, how many this thing. Our sales team, our engineering team can work with customers, identify the needs, and also we can have a correct sizing, and that actually tells you what exactly you need to buy. That is really very big value add. then award-winning 13G servers, and we are getting the 13G servers as well as the JBots. And the low-cost networking, we have a networking, different networking components we sell. We put together all of them so that they work together along with all the servers, storage, RDMA, and all the things they work together, make sure we get the right performance. Then we have a private cloud architecture. So this is how we are doing it, and you can see we are launching this one next month, June 2015, but we can go to the Dell booth, you can get a lot of information about it. Then also sizing, we talked about sizing. How do I do sizing? So we have a numbers, we have a calculated how many exactly the real numbers, what happens is that you have a pool, like a column count 2, column count 4. Which one should I use it? That gives you a prescribed guidance. Deployment. Dell has a deployment tools to deploy the servers and also to deploy JBots, and actually we do have factory install deployment as well. And also we have consulting services that actually guide you the process, how to deploy storage spaces if we need it to. Management, that is very key. We have a components that integrate with the system center, and also we have a power tools that actually manage and monitor your JBots. So we have a good management tools along with, to update your clusters, we integrated Dell updates into cluster aware update so that you can actually update your scale out file servers as well. Support, we have a full support end to end. We can provide you that support so that you can safely and reliably deploy storage spaces clusters. Yeah, as I said, you can look at a lot of demos at the Dell booth. The other thing what we are trying to do is that now we have these many configurations. So there are a lot of private cloud solutions. Somebody needs a different capacity, the different price point. So there are different solutions we are building, and the building block for the solutions is going to be Dell storage with Microsoft storage spaces. So for them, where we need a private cloud needs, we are going to use the building blocks which have been already tested, validated, and use them and put Hyper-V nodes, networking, and everything in the stack, and so that we can build a solution. So that is going to serve as a building block for a lot of our solutions as well. So that's all the work we have done, and if you want to deploy storage spaces today, that is our answer. Dell storage spaces, Dell storage with Microsoft storage spaces is the answer, and I highly encourage you guys to go to the Dell booth and learn more stuff. Now fast forwarding, Windows 2016, of course Microsoft announced storage spaces direct. So here I'm going to talk to you guys what exactly we are doing today. Of course this is not product we are selling today, of course OS is not available, but a lot of work going between Dell and Microsoft to make it hardened stack from the hardware, software perspective to make sure we can, by the time Microsoft releases the operating system, we have a reliable stack from the end-to-end solution perspective. So this is the solution what we just talked about it, right? You have a Hyper-V cluster, we have an assembly network, we have scale-out file server and JBot. So with storage spaces direct, it's going to enable DAS, as I talked about the server storage. So what can happen is that you can have the storage that is actually inside the server. Basically the internal storage of the server, you can use them, and actually you can create the cluster across. So that is the beauty of storage spaces direct. Then in the technical preview 2, you can have a server, you can scale up to 12, 4 minimum, and they can scale up to 12, and you can have maximum 240 hard drives in a single pool. Fault tolerance. So the tolerance, as we talked about in the previously, we have a node fault tolerance, and if you have 4 nodes, you can have 1 node fault tolerance. If you have 5 nodes, you can have 2 node fault tolerance. And currently, 3-way mirroring is recommended, and that's the way we would like to see it deploy. And going forward, we'll be working with Microsoft to see how the dual parity comes up, and we'll be doing a lot of performance. And that if you have any feedback, please share with us. What is your thoughts on that? That will be very important for us. Management, System Center, Dell has the System Center plugins, and the PowerShell. This is the one thing. All the cluster actually you can manage using the PowerShell as well. Simple expansion. So there is also beauty of Spaces Direct. You can start with the 4 node, you can bring up 5th node or 6th node, you can add it, and actually it can rebalance it for the capacity, and you have more capacity available. So it's simple of adding a server with the storage to the cluster. So I'm going to go through a little bit of technical details, what I understand about working with Microsoft about storage spaces direct, how does it work. So I'm going to go the logical view, how does it work. Basically, you have a server, right now in the diagram I'm showing the 4 servers each with 2 drives, just for an example. And we can support SATA, NVMe, and SAS. What happens is that there is a new component that is going to be introduced in vNext. It's called storage bus, software storage bus. What exactly it does is that it takes all the servers and looks at all the hard drives and actually pulls them together and makes them as a shared storage that is visible to every node. So that is the job of that. So you can see on the top of a software bus, you have a pool of drives, and those are available for every server in that. So now it becomes like a shared storage. Now on the top of that is exactly like Windows Server 2002. You can create a storage spaces, spaces, and you can use the scale out file servers, and also you can use for your CSV and all stuff. So it's exactly. The one very important thing which here is that with Spaces Direct, REFS is the only one which is recommended to deploy. It's very important to deploy only RFS. I'll talk about that more. And also tomorrow there is a session. Class is going to talk about and demo why REFS is going to be very important. Digging a little more details. So whole stack, basically who are the geeks in the audiences, they can look at it, what exactly the driver stack looks like. So you have your HBA, that is the HBA we are going to qualify and make sure that qualifies all the storage spaces requirements for storage spaces direct and high performance. And under that you have a physical layer. In the physical layer you have disk and of course partition manager, and everything is going to load up. That is not new. This is the new part where software bus layer, basically there are 2 new components. If you look at the device manager today, if you download TP2, you can actually see cluster virtual HBA being there. Along with the storage spaces HBA, you're going to have a cluster virtual HBA. That is where all the technology is going to lie. Basically, it's going to consume all of them, drives, and make sure that it coordinates with all other nodes and exposes the final pool disks to the upper layer storage spaces. So this is where RDMA becomes very important. As you see, I have a server 1, server 2. The cluster HBA on the server 1 is talking to the server 2 on a network to find the storage information and to send the IO, storage IO in that. So RDMA network becomes critical based on all the kind of storage you have. So we are actually validating the solution using the RDMA as well. So now on top of that, your storage spaces is going to load, spaceport is going to load. That is going to create your pools and VDs on top of that. Once that is loaded, the stack is exactly going to look same thing. You have a disk stack is going to come up, partition manager, volume manager. On top of that, you can get a CSV and file system. The file system, as I said before, REF is very important. So this is how it goes. So when IO has to come from the server 1 to server 2, and it's going to flow from all the way to the drive, and it's going to go to the bus layer and go to the other node. So talking about REFS. REFS is there actually in 2012, but is not widely deployed. And Microsoft actually did a lot of improvements in 2012 R2. Still it's not there. But for spaces, storage spaces direct, this is mandatory we deploy REFS. So it is going to, when you create a VHD of a 1 terabyte on NTFS, it takes a long time. So there is optimization done in REFS to make it very, very fast. Actually, you'll see the demo tomorrow as well. Efficient checkpoints. When you checkpoint, it actually takes a lot of IO, and it's going to take a lot of time as well. Of course, supports affordable SSDs and HDDs, both are SATA. Resilient. This is very key feature. Because now REFS is running on top of storage spaces. Storage spaces knows where the copies are. That's the key information because it can read all that information. On top of that, what RDF is that actually it does a checksum, and when it's writing the IO, it writes the checksum along with the IO as well. So when it's reading, it can actually validate the checksum is correct or not. So I'll talk more details, and tomorrow there is a session 3474, and there will be live demos about this. Metadata checksum. It's not only for user data. RFS does a checksum for your file system metadata as well, so that your file system metadata corruptions can be recovered. User data, which I already talked to you about. Checksum verification, both read and write while reading it verifies the stuff. The key thing is that once it reads the checksum and let's say REFS finds, oh, it's not working, I mean, checksum is failed. So what exactly it's going to do is that it's going to look at, talk to spaces, find where the copy is, and see and read the checksum, read that the copy and identify the checksum. If that is a good copy, what it's going to do, that is going to actually overwrite it, the copy which is bad. So that is the way REFS works along with the storage spaces as well. So this is a little animation. Basically, I have 3 copies, and assume that let's say one copy is corrupted, and it's going to read from other good copy. Actually, I went a little faster. It's going to read from that copy and overwrite that. Okay, now coming to the hardware part of it. As I told, SDS is a very good solution. Both hardware stack and software stack should be fully vetted, and they have to be give a right performance, because the storage is, you need a consistent performance. That is the reason we are actually engaging Microsoft way early in the process to make sure that we get the benefits, both hardware and software, to our customers who are planning to deploy at the initial stages as well. Hardware options. One of the things that we have a full hardware running at the Microsoft Cloud booth. If you want to look at the storage spaces direct hardware, please come to the Microsoft Cloud Platform booth, and we have a full stack running from all the way up to the file server clusters and VM as well. So we have a lot of hardware available at our to choose to optimize for storage spaces direct. So for initially, this is the platform we wanted to test it. We wanted to see how everything scales up. We want to find all the issues, or we want to find out what are the performance numbers and scalability numbers. And this is the platform we are starting. It doesn't mean that we may end up only with this platform or all this platform. I just want to make sure this is all the work pre-work we are doing to identify what is the right solution which we should encourage our customers to deploy. So this is also a system we are looking at it right now, and this is the one which I have in the demo booth as well. Of course, the Intel has processors, and you can go up to 2060 CPU. Then we have 24 DIMM slots. You can almost get 380 GB of memory. Storage, that is very key important. Actually, it has a 16 3.5-inch slot and actually 2 2.5-inch slots. So it comes out to be, if you have a 4 terabyte drives in all of them, actually you can get 64 terabyte, and you have 6 terabyte drives, you can get 96. So you can see it's very storage, lot of storage it can do. And also we can support internal drives, internal SATA, SAS as NVMe. NVMe can go into PCI slots. It's to you. We have 6 PCI slots. I'll talk about more details, how we can use those PCI slots in different configurations. We have a wide variety of network adapters. But it doesn't mean we are going to qualify everything. So this is the reason why we want to make sure that what exactly performs optimally and what we can support and sustain, and we'll go to those exercises coming next 12 months. Storage certified HBA. We'll make sure by the time it comes out, we have a right HBA, that is a storage spaces certified. So if you look at the R730HD, if you look at it, it has a lot of PCI slots. So even if you take one slot for RDMA networking, you still have 5 left, and you can do a lot of NVMe on them. So now you can do SSDs, because you have 16 slots, you can do SSD on them, or if you want to NVMe, we can do NVMe as well. So there are a lot of slots. And also you can look at, there are 2 drives in the back. Those 2 drives you can use for operating system installation, so that you have resiliency there as well. So remaining, the key other thing is that iDRAC. Because it's a server, we can manage with iDRAC, and we have a lot of features in the iDRAC, automated deployment, system center integration, backup recovery. Let's say you have a 12-node cluster. You can actually configure only one server the way you want. You can actually back it up all the configuration and deploy and not 12 of them. So there are a lot of features like the normal traditional server management you can get in the storage clusters as well. The other key thing is that we have 4 drives. You saw 16 in the front. There are the 4 drives, what we call the internal bay. Those are a hot plug as well. If you have a server that is going to actually have a cable arm, you can actually pull it out and you can take it out. So those are hot plug drives as well. This is the one slide I'm going to put to the marketing side. 13G. The key point what I want to talk about here is that if you can come here, you can look at it. Even though they're all server releases, there's a storage review as well. The key reason is that actually this is a storage optimized server as well. You can see amount of the storage we have, the CPUs and the PCS slots. So that's why we feel this better fits for Spaces Direct as well. It's good. A demo. I have a demo running at booth. This is how exactly my stack looks like. You guys can come over look at. I have actually 5 R730 HDs fully populated. I have a 4-node cluster created. I'm using right now currently Mellanox card. And also I have a Hyper-V nodes, which you can do connected and scale out file server, and have a networking. We can show the full demo there. Now next one, okay, how the deployment process is going to look like. So we talked about the software, we talked about how software works, we talked about the hardware. So now putting together how the deployment process works. I just quickly go through some of the stuff. Of course, you select hardware, validate hardware, install the OS. The key part is that when you do the storage Spaces Direct, when you're creating a cluster, there's the one property you need to set to make it is a DAS enabled. You can validation, you can run the workload, and ongoing monitoring and management. So if you have anybody deployed storage Spaces cluster today, this is how typical script looks like. You just take it, you deploy the cluster, you create the pools, and you can create the spaces, you can expose them to the file server. The only one thing you need to do is that once you create a cluster with no storage option, you take the cluster object, you're going to set one property, dash mode enabled. That's the only new thing you need to do. So what exactly happens behind the scene when you do that? So till that time, cluster doesn't know that, okay, there is a storage available, you need to do that. When you do this, the storage bus layer is going to get activated. So it is going to start looking at all the nodes in the cluster, talking to them, where are the physical disks, and trying to create a logical objects of all the physical disks in your cluster and make them visible to the spaceport driver so that you can create pools and VDs on top of that. So monitoring and management. So as you know, Dell worked with Microsoft a lot on the system center integration. So being a server, you get all the benefits of all the system center integration suite we have done. We can deploy using system center, zero touch. You can discuss, you can enable using iDRAC. We can update the firmware out of band with all the components using our lifecycle controller and system center. We can monitor all the events which from your networking cards, your CPU, your fans and everything, all the information we can monitor with our agents. Of course, system center virtual machine integration. We have a lot of integration with system. So the key reason is that now you are using a server as a storage, you get all the benefits automatically because they have been there, they have been deployed for years, they have been tested, validated. Those are all benefits you get automatically. So underlying for all these things is that Dell lifecycle controller integration. We have a iDRAC that has been totally integrated with all the system center tools, and you can get all the benefits from that as well. Other than that, Microsoft actually looking to enable the diagnostics more easily. When you are monitoring and you are have a system issues, previously what used to happen is that there are different subsystems. You can look at your server subsystem, you have a storage subsystem, disks, you have NTFS, REFS, and you have a network. Lot of logs you need to see, and a lot of information you need to go through. So there's a new command that has been introduced in Server 2016, where you can start diagnostics and you run whatever the scenario you want. You can stop it. By the time you have all the logs from all the subsystems that are needed to debug an issue. That's a very cool feature. That helps a lot in actually debugging the storage issues. Then other improvement is going to be there. The key thing is that in the server, if you look at in the bottom, what you have here is, in the OS itself, there is going to be a health service running in the operating system itself. What is going to do? It is going to get all the logs from the different subsystems available, and is going to expose it to anybody who wants. Either you can write a third-party plugin, you can write a PowerShell or SCOM. All can read it, and if the SCOM plugins, whatever have, they can actually read it, all that information, and give a holistic view of what is happening in the system, because all the information coming collectively. So SCOM doesn't have to go, or third management tools, PowerShell doesn't have to go every time to get a different events and all that stuff. That is going to be very important. Dell and Microsoft key value. As you talk, now I talk to you about what we are doing today, what you can buy today, what we are doing in the future, all the information. Now we are talking about what the value add we are bringing it up. So we have industry award-winning hardware, JBOD, servers, everything will be available, that will be tested. On top of that, we have end-to-end stack. We have servers for scale-out for the servers we want. Then we have networking. And you have Hyper-V nodes. All together from end-to-end solution, Dell can satisfy our needs if we are deploying the scale-out file server clusters. On top of that, we talked about the system center integration and also Dell system management tools. And also we have solutions, end-to-end solutions, reference architecture, VDIs today available. Yes, S4810. So overall this stuff, it is a tested, validated, scalable, and it validated for your scalable and reliable deployments. That is the way the key. It is not like bunch of parts putting together and giving to that. It has been validated both Microsoft and Dell, and we believe that is the right solution that we have to give it to the mutual customers. That is the solution we are bringing to the market. With that, I'm going to give it to Shai to talk more about our partnership.
Thanks, Liam.
Thank you.
Nope. I think our, oh, there we go. So I want to talk to you about the partnership. How do you do forward here? Sorry, that's a user question. There we go. I want to talk to you a bit about the Dell and Microsoft relationship and partnership as we go through designing such a platform and maybe walk you through some of the efforts and some of the things that we do internally to make this a successful platform. So first of all, if we talk about data to begin with, this is your data, and we're very concerned about it. We want to make sure that we have a stable system and there's no data at risk. And one of the things that we do is we have a close engineering relationship with Dell as we develop those products, as we develop those solutions for customers. A great example is if we look at Storage Spaces Direct, we have a weekly call with Dell. We have Dell engineers coming to Redmond. We have ourselves, like the Microsoft engineers, going to Austin, working with Dell. A good example is if we look at Dell R730XD, we actually had multiple iterations with Dell in deciding which system makes sense for us to support Storage Spaces Direct on, and actually have Dell provide some feedback for us as far as the changes that they want from us for the system and the back-end and clustering and so on and so forth. So we have work ongoing on engineering on multiple levels, on provisioning, on monitoring, on management, on deployment, on rebalancing, a lot of efforts that we do, what kind of components go into those systems. We would provide some of our learnings from cloud platform systems from CPS into Dell and say, we would prefer to see this, these components in the system because these components have proven and have the track record for us to be able to say, yeah, Microsoft supports it, Microsoft stamps this configuration. I want to give a couple of examples of the stuff that we're doing. First of all, we're working on a joint TAP program where TAP is a technology adoption program that Microsoft takes on early adopters of the Microsoft solutions or Microsoft platform. And we tell them, go deploy this workload in production. Go test, as Siam said, and I'm quoting here, the hell out of it. And make sure that that system is resilient and that system is what we think it is. And those TAP customers are going to have to buy Dell hardware in order to run specifically Storage Spaces Direct workload. There's going to be other providers, other OEMs in the future, very shortly after Dell, or maybe it's going to take a few more months. But those are the things that we're working with on the co-engineering program and making sure that there is a close relationship between the two companies. Another thing that we're working on is how we're going to work out support, because now we're going to have hardware and software. So we're working out the intricacies between Dell and Microsoft. So you're going to have one call, and you're going to have an end-to-end support for those systems and for those solutions. Because again, it's your data. We want to make sure that you guys are treated the right way. A lot of the work that we're working on, that we're doing right now, we're investing a lot. Microsoft's investing a lot. Dell is investing a lot. And I think the biggest winner is the customer. So when you go out and you buy this system, you have two companies backing up that solution that are really supporting it wholeheartedly and making sure that you have the best experience and the best systems that are running those solutions. So I want to talk about some of the things that, the Microsoft and Dell alliance, which exists between two companies that we're working on. And some of the things that we're doing is we're finding, as I said earlier, early adopters or customers that want to run a specific workload. And we have a reach out program that says, why don't we work together in deploying this solution in your organization? We talk to those customers on a regular basis. We take feedback from them. Dell takes feedback from them. And we put it back in the product. So those are some of the things that we're working on. We would work with Dell and provide them feedback that we would hear from customers that they don't want to tell them directly, and vice versa. Dell would tell us things that customers are saying that they don't want to tell us directly, or maybe they have a close relationship. So those are the things that we're doing. We're doing this globally, so it's not just in the U.S. We're doing this in Europe and Asia. We're doing it all over the world, pretty much, to make sure that our programs and our products are available globally. So we have customers literally all over the world. With that, let me hand it over to Siam to talk about some other things that Dell has done greatly in the past few years.
Thanks, Shai. Yeah, this is a code from Microsoft Server and Cloud Platform team. Dell is the largest OEM that can support the end-to-end storage spaces deployment. That tells a lot. It coming from that they have seen it. It's not like that. They have seen it, they have tested it, they have validated it. They know end-to-end how the Dell is actually productizing it, support services. Based on all the things what you've done, this is the code from Microsoft to acknowledging our efforts and our partnership in that. Summary. I know I talked a lot of information here. I just want to recap a couple of things. We talked about Storage Spaces 2012 R2, the product what we have done so far, and the product we are released. Basically, scalable, resilient, efficient SDS solution. We are delivering that today. You can get that information today, you can buy it, and you can deploy it today. Dell and Microsoft collaboration. I talked a lot about collaboration and how we did optimization. A lot of work has been as a CPS work, or the Dell work, what we have done it, how we build the solutions together, and how much testing we are doing together. And you can see that in action. When you go to the Dell booth or you come to the Microsoft Cloud Platforms, and you can see both of the places hardware. And for today's storage spaces need, Dell storage with Microsoft storage spaces, your answer. And visit Dell booth. And also I talked about storage spaces direct, how early we are engaging with Microsoft and identifying the right platform, right hardware, right scenarios, and getting your feedback. So it is also very important we include you in the process. That is where the TAP comes into. It is not only Dell and Microsoft working together defining a product for you. You will have a voice. Please come to Dell booth or Microsoft. Please come and tell us where do you want to see it, how you want to deploy it, what do you want to see it in the hardware as well and software. We can work together with you to make sure that we take that feedback, and when we are giving the product back, you know that this is what you wanted. That is very important. That is why we encourage you to join TAP as well. And also look at cloud platform at the Dell booth in the Explore floor, and also Dell Tech Center. So as you know, you got the build now. We have a hardware. We'll be doing a lot of work, and Microsoft will be blogging on their side, and Dell will be, please watch out for Dell Tech Center. Whatever the new information we have, how to define, how to deploy, we'll be posting there, and watch out for that. End of the day, leverage what is both good work Microsoft and Dell is doing for you, and participate in that participation. That's all. With that, I'll leave it for Q&A.
Yeah, we're on now. So I know we went a bit fast over the content, but we have a good 20, 30 minutes for question and answers that you may have. We also have some other people here which we didn't point out who are from the same storage team. So if you have any deep technical questions, if you want to ask about Dell specifically, if you want to ask about the Microsoft stack, please feel free. There are microphones in both sides.
specific requirement?
So the question was, are there specific requirements to use storage spaces direct? So I'll let Klaus talk to that.
On the networks, is this on? Okay. So the question was, is there any specific network requirements for the switches part? And Storage Spaces Direct will utilize the SMB direct transport between the nodes for storage flow. And for that, we require RDMA-enabled networking infrastructure. So that specifically means, for us, Rocky and IWAR. So for that, we need the corresponding switches. For Rocky specifically, you still need PFC and DCB and those pieces, yes.
Yep, over there.
I noticed that there was a separate Hyper-V cluster with storage with, direct. Are you going to have the option to run compute on the storage cluster, or are those going to remain separate? I don't understand why they're separate.
Okay, so if you look at our history, then in the 2012 wave, we have primarily focused on what we internally call the disaggregated configuration, where you have exactly, as you mentioned, a Hyper-V cluster and a storage cluster. With the introduction of Storage Spaces Direct and the next release, we are focused on giving you the choice of continue to running in that mode, which gives you some flexibility around your scale and the way you manage it. And you also will support the hyperconverged mode, where the hypervisor and the storage are collapsed into the same set of hardware nodes. So that'll give you the best of both worlds, because whatever you prefer, you can deploy. We don't force you into one or the other. And I'll speak a little more to what the contrast of these two in my session tomorrow. You got a question?
Where is the target when you would go to Storage Spaces Direct versus traditional?
You're asking a very impartial person.
Where Dell, for example, is going to sell both kinds of hardware.
Right.
Where are you going to sell?
Very good question. So we are not going to push customer to do what? So there is no thing that we are going to say you have to deploy this one. We want to understand if you have a private cloud deployment, okay, we want a low cost, and the other end is the mission critical, where we are. So we have the way we are looking at this thing that, okay, if you have private cloud environment, you have a scale out requirement, a lot of scale out requirement where you want to scale as it grows with the server node, like Spaces Direct makes sense. We still be supporting SAN. SAN is the mission critical for Dell, and for all the mission criticals and all stuff, we'll encourage you to do SAN as well. So it is, even though that's the beauty of Dell. Software defined storage is going to be stay in the industry. It is not going to go away. And it has its requirement and it has its own applications. So we fully embrace that, and we have multiple partners which are working in that direction. So we will continue to work with Microsoft closely and bring out the products. And that's where we give a choice to the customer. It's not like that we are enforcing that, okay, we only ship this thing, you have to buy this one. That is not the Dell strategy.
I noticed you talked about triple resiliency and those types of things. Is that a requirement that you have that triple resiliency on every workload, by workload, or by VM, or is it by one at the high level? How does that work?
So the question is, are we requiring triple redundancy, or what are we actually requiring? So first, there's still a bit of time between now and when we ship, and we will learn more about various configurations in that time. So whatever I say now may change. Okay? So the current configurations that we test most with is we are using triple copies, if you will, and there's a reason for that, because we do want to allow you in a shared nothing environment to service a node, because that happens from time to time. You need to change some hardware components because a hardware component failed. You need to, on some Tuesdays in some months, you might need to patch some software on these boxes, right? And that time you're actually taking a node down. And at that point, we want to make sure that with triple copies, you can still sustain a failure somewhere else in the system. All right, so take a node down, you can have a failure, and your data is still available. All right, so that's the beauty of the 3 copies. If you go down to 2 copies, which you can do, it's not like we're blocking you from doing that, but that puts you at risk the moment you have anything you want to service, and then the data is not lost, it's just that it becomes unavailable because there's not sufficient enough data to actually present it. So what we do is if we don't have enough copies, we actually take the volumes offline. Right? You don't lose the data. When the machines come back, the volumes come back online. But that means the hypervisors that are consuming them, of course, cannot continue to execute what is on those volumes. Now,
is there a method to recover from that? So if a node goes out, obviously there's I'm taking it out for maintenance scenario.
yep.
And there's this node is there scenario.
Yes, so if let's talk about that. I will be talking about that again on Thursday. But if a node disappears forever, for whatever reason it disappears, then you can instruct the system, because we don't know as in the system itself whether that will come back or not. So what you can as the administrator, you have the control to say, it's not going to come back, start the recovery process. The recovery process knows, okay, so all the data that was on this node, I now have to regenerate somewhere else in the system. And it'll go and regenerate that data, and then you will be back to your 2 or 3 copies or whatever your configuration is. The other part is that we're doing a bunch to help with our dual parity support to push that further for more scenarios. But there's going to be more on that on a later date.
Clear, conceptually, from a technical point of view, storage spaces supports everything from disk configurations without any redundancy. Okay, sorry. So just to be clear, from a topology point of view, storage spaces supports everything from configurations where there's no redundancy on the disk, where you're just striping, analogous to RAID 0, to configurations like Klaus talked about, where it's mirroring, analogous to RAID 1 or RAID 10, and then parity configurations as well. What we're talking about today is what we're recommending for TP2, and then what we'll recommend with the time remaining. TP2 is Technical Preview 2, the version that was released on Monday. So the platform supports a wide range of ways to configure storage.
And where is that defined? Is that defined when you create the pool?
No, so the model is you take the physical disks, you put them in a pool, and then from that pool you create one or more virtual disks, and it is on the virtual disk that the resiliency type, like we talked about, is specified. So you can have a single pool with a mix of virtual disks, each with a different type of resiliency. So today, down in the Cloud Platform System booth, if you go and talk, you'll see that for primary workloads, they recommend triple mirror. And that's primarily driven by performance and the need for redundancy against 2 failures. The backup pool today on CPS, and what we generally recommend, uses dual parity, giving people capacity efficiency on the storage while still providing resiliency against dual disk failure. And that's the way it is in R2, and as Klaus alluded to, we'll continue to kind of work on that area. But there is a high degree of flexibility.
With ReFS being the recommended, I guess, file system, are you guys going to start supporting like deduplication in ReFS or compression at the very least, or is that still an NTFS only thing?
So I'll just, I guess. So the question was around what's the level of support for ReFS. So today for TP2, deduplication is not supported on ReFS. And as we've said, we have some time remaining in the release, and we'll have more guidance around things like deduplication and compression later in the release.
Can you talk a little bit about encryption options, either BitLocker level or Dell has self-encryption drives?
Yeah. So by storage spaces does not support SCD drives, so that is not an option. So what we support that Dell does support TPM. So and Microsoft supports BitLocker and CSV volumes. So what you can do that currently, if you want to deploy encryption for storage, you can actually have a volume level encryption using BitLocker, and you can encrypt them. That's the option available.
And I'm not sure if you're aware, but SMB, just for the in-flight, the data between the hypervisors and the storage system, SMB also has a mode where you can turn on encryption, so you can have encryption not only for data at rest, which I think your question was about, but also for data in flight. Oh, so the host guardian thing is something completely new, where the SMB encryption has been in since the 2012 wave. I am not an expert in Guardian, so I will make no further statements because they're bound to be wrong. So I'll encourage you to go to the session, or maybe Sid can help out with something here if there's something specific.
How about the replication itself?
Sorry,
Is replication supported with Storage Spaces Direct?
are you specifically referring to Storage Replica?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so Storage Replica is another feature of the Windows Server Technical Preview 2. And yes, Storage Spaces Direct and Storage Replica can work together. So if you imagine I have data center A, or data room A, if you will, I put one instance of a Storage Spaces Direct deployment. And then in my other data center, or in my other data center room, I put another instance of Storage Spaces Direct. You can actually use Storage Replica on top of them to replicate between these two storage clusters.
So is it support both synchronous and async?
Yeah.
So maybe I take that. So there's a whole talk on Storage Replica. The short answer is yes. Storage Replica basically supports synchronous replication. It needs a less than 5 millisecond latency link, and it works on any volume. It doesn't need to be a storage spaces volume. It could be a SAN volume or any NAS volume. And then it also has asynchronous replication mode as well. And basically, depending on the latency of the link, you can throttle, you can go from sync to async, and then it can do catch up and go back to synchronous mode. But the key thing is for synchronous, it needs the laws of physics apply. You need a less than 5 millisecond latency. And you can learn more about in NetPile's talk. He has 2 talks on Thursday around Storage Replica. One is using that on failover clusters, and the other is just native Storage Replica.
Okay, so if we don't have any more questions, please fill up the evaluation.
Still fill out the evaluation, but we'll take more.
I was just curious if you knew how Storage Spaces Direct would be licensed.
That is for a future conversation.
I have one. You were talking about the hardware and software being supported as like an end-to-end solution. Who do you call? Is it Dell? Is it Microsoft?
So,
You're chasing down.
so for TP2, we are working with a very limited set of customers. And we're actually, if you want to try it out and call your hardware vendor, being Dell, that's fine. If you want to call, if you have Premier support, we will have lines for those customers who are on TAP, Technology Adoption Program. And Sid wants to add as well.
I think the generic thing is basically, if you see CPS, CPS is a very unique solution where it was Microsoft led, okay, because Dell. But if you see the Dell, the Dell shared JBOD solution that you will see in the Dell booth, that is basically Dell-led solution. Basically, it comes to Dell as from a support standpoint. Behind Dell is the Microsoft team as well, as we mentioned. And if you see the Storage Spaces Direct solution, there is a lot of other partners as well. It will be essentially partner-led. Whoever is, selling the solution to customers, that is typically going to be the partner's field sales force.
Yeah, that's once we release a product, of course, Dell will be behind to support our customers. There's no doubt about that. So till the time, what we're working with Microsoft to define a process, like as a TAP, as Shai alluded, the select customers, they'll be getting the feedback, working with Microsoft closely, identify the hardware issue, software issue, and there will be a process defined and will be explained for the TAP customers how does it exactly works.
Yep.
Till the time, we'll be working closely and providing a lot of information via blogs, via tech center from Microsoft.
You will have a clear line of support, just to be
Yeah.
clear. You will have a clean line of support for the current shipping Dell platform that is being announced in the Dell booth. You should go there and ask more questions. For the future stuff, the Storage Spaces Direct, we are engaging in a small, Shai alluded to the TAP program, where Dell and Microsoft jointly define and identify customers. So if you want to be part of that program, there is something, you can definitely come up and, talk to us. We'll figure out a plan to include you.
Well, thanks again, everyone. And again, if you can evaluate our session, we'd appreciate it. Thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.